What's up everyone, back with another comic book haul video. Today I'm going to check out this huge stack of various purchases I've made over the last couple of weeks. You got a good mix of eBay, some Ollies, and some local comic book shop stuff, and all of it I'm very excited to show off. So let's start right off the top with an eBay purchase I made just a couple of days ago. And one thing I love about eBay is how quickly it ships. This is the X-Men vs. Apocalypse trade paperback. And the reason I got this is I've been collecting the Cable series for a long time now. And the last two issues I needed are actually collected in this trade. And I always kind of told myself that I would just wait to get this trade because it's a really good story. And I like having crossovers in trade form because it makes it easier to read. But when I looked at it recently, I noticed the price on this trade was starting to go up really high. Some people were charging as much as $50 and it was selling at that price. Luckily, I came across an eBay seller who was only selling it for about 20 bucks. I grabbed it right away, and now with this trade paperback, I officially have every issue of the Cable series. I'm not one of those people that has to have everything in issue form. I like having trade paperbacks, especially when it comes to crossovers. Next up, we have another eBay seller, and this was a case where I got it in for one book, and then because of the shipping was a little expensive, I decided to grab a couple more along the way. So, the one I went in for originally is right here. This is the Flash by Grant Morrison and Mark Millar. I got this for my Season 3 Flash video. I needed the Black Flash story. And it's funny, this cover is actually really significant to me because this is one of the first comic books I grabbed off the stands when I was a kid. So I got into this one for about $6, I want to say. And then his shipping was... it was reasonable-ish, because it was really well packaged, but at the time I was like, that's kind of expensive, let me see what else I can win. And he had a couple other auctions going with no bids. So I got this book for about $2, and this is actually one I've been looking for a long time. I was hoping to get a newer copy, but this is excellent. I think it collects all of the issues of the Mutant Massacre. When it comes to older trades, I do like them because I like the covers. I think they put more work into them. The only thing I don't like is sometimes they don't always collect all of the issues like newer trades do. So that's kind of a trade-off. But I've been wanting this for a while, so I was really glad I picked this up. And then this, initially I wasn't going to buy it, but then I started to look at it and I noticed X-Men and Cable were on the team and I was like, what era is this? What is this? And I realized that it actually took place right before this X-Men vs. Apocalypse trade. This is the 12 storyline, and this is the storyline where they find out that Wolverine is the Death Horseman. So yeah, I got this for 99 cents plus shipping. So altogether, I got all three of these books for about 20 bucks, which is an awesome deal. I mean, this Flash and this Mutant Massacre one are both really, really thick and pretty... Yeah, this one was $25 initially, and I'm sure the Flash one was equivalent. So really good deal there. Next up, this is kind of a random pickup. As you know, I'm a big fan of the Wildstorm universe. And I saw that the newest edition of Sleeper had just come out, where it was basically seasons 1 and 2 all collected in a huge omnibus. That reminded me that I still needed to get seasons 1 and 2. I hopped onto eBay. I saw a seller. He had them at $20 or best offer. I offered him $10. He came back at $15. So I got both of these for 15 bucks shipped. So about $7.50 a piece. They collect all 12 issues of Season 1 and Season 2. If you've never heard about the Sleeper series, it's really well regarded. It actually started with a series called Point Blank that involved Grifter, a really prominent Wildstorm character, and then it spins off into the Sleeper series. I've never read the whole thing in its entirety. I have read Point Blank and it's very good, so I'm excited to finally read this. Next up, of course, I had to go to Erie, Pennsylvania recently, and I stopped at a comic book store I like there, but they also had an Ollie's there, so I decided to stop in and, see what they had, because from my experience, every Ollie's seems to have different stuff, and I never want to miss out on anything really, really good. And the one thing I found that I was really... Just gonna get that receipt out of the way. The one thing I found I was really excited about was the Last Days of Animal Man. As you might have seen in one of my unboxing videos, I actually just picked up the first 2 issues. Now I'll be able to flip those. First and second issue are typically easier to flip than later issues. So I'm really excited to get this. It was only $3. It cost me almost as much as, or a little bit more than those first 2 issues. So that's pretty cool. And then they also had 2 volumes of the original, well, not the original, but the second volume of Green Lantern Corps. This is the pre-Flashpoint stuff, so this is pretty cool. I do like Sodom Yacht is one of my favorite characters, although I did read this and he wasn't very prominent, which was kind of a bummer. So I also really like the Alpha Lantern, so I'm excited to check this out. Plus, look at Guy Gardner sorry, Kyle Rayner on the front there in that giant mechanized armor suit. That's so cool looking. And then next up is the Stars and Stripe trade paperback. This is volume 1. I already had volume 2, so this was a nice find. I finally got the complete series. Really excited to, whenever I think of Jeff Johns, I always think about this was some of his earliest work. And this was like one of his most personal stories because the character was based off his sister. So I'm excited to finally read this the whole way through. And then finally, the last thing I got was The Outsiders, The Great Divide. This is in the Batman Reborn era, shortly after Batman died during a final crisis. The first volume is actually really, really good, but they kind of dipped down in quality. I picked this up because it was cheap, and I do like some of the concepts and ideas that were introduced in the series. But, you know, I'm going in with kind of a level-headed, I should say, just because I have heard that it can be not so good. So, yeah, great Ollie's haul. Like I said, you gotta check every single one because it seems like every single store got different stuff. I don't know how they worked it out, but... Next up is, so I was in Erie, and I stopped at a store called Action Toy Man, one of my favorite comic book shops. The guys there are really, really nice to work with, and they have a ton of dollar books, so I got to pick up a ton of stuff. I don't have these in order, but okay. So first off, I did pick up a Wildstorm swimsuit special. I always wanted these when I was a kid. I never really see them that often, so when I saw it, I was like, it's $1. My embarrassment will last for like a minute, but now I finally have one of them. And then the reason I went there initially is because my friend who works there told me they got a ton of Wildcat stuff, and I was trying to, you know, finish off my Wildcats. I got the last issue, which is always really difficult to find, so really excited about that. And then there's this Halloween Trilogy of Terror special, a Wildcats annual that I was missing. This is from the late 90s series from when it was DC and Wildstorm. This Zero issue, which I've talked about this before, these are some of the most frustrating comic books. Zeros and half issues. A lot of the times they don't really have crucial information. They're more just collector's items. They're extremely thin. I mean, they're really like 12 pages, I think, of content most of the time. But if you're like a diehard collector like me, sometimes you just gotta have them to complete the set. More issues. This is issues 4 and 9 of the... or an 11, yeah, 4, 9, 11 of the second volume of Wildcats. These are actually the last couple issues I needed, so I've completed the series. Really excited for that. I love the Spartan cover. I thought a lot of the designs during this series were awesome. Spartan especially looks really, really cool. I think that's Chavis Charest, I think his name is, on the covers. Really, really good artist. Then you got Lady Tron on this one. And then more of the volume 1 of Wildcats. I've got issues 37, 38, 39, and 46. And then another special, this is the Wildstorm Chamber of Terrors with a awesome Deathblow cover. That is so cool looking. And then finally, since I was doing a lot of traveling anyway, I had to stop in my hometown, Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and I stopped at the local comic book store there, Bent Wilkie Comics, a place I've gone a lot growing up. I don't get to go there too much anymore, but I got to buy some stuff they had. First off, Hal Jordan the Green Lantern Corps number 1, 3, and 4. I already have issues 2 and 5, or 2 and 6. So I'm in pretty good shape there. I also got the excellent Silencer number 3. If you're not reading the series, it's absolutely fantastic. If you like action comics, highly recommend checking it out. The newest issue of Cable, again, lots of fun. Newest issue of Bonehead. And then we've got the Terrifics number 2. I wasn't sold on the first issue, but the second issue is much better. The third issue is going to complete the story arc, I believe. I think that's what it says. Next... yeah, this is part 2 of 3. So the next issue is going to complete the first story arc, and then I'll decide if I'm going to pull it or not. And then the newest issue of Hal Jordan the Green Lantern Corps, 40 and 41. Awesome, awesome. I was a little disappointed with the ending, but it was still a really good story arc overall. And then we've got issue 2 of Mera. This is a case where if this was an ongoing, I probably wouldn't stick with it. But it's only 6 issues, so I'm definitely going to stick with it. It's got a clear idea. I really like Ocean Master, and I'm hoping he's going to be more prominent in this. Yeah, if it was just an ongoing, I probably would have dropped it by now just because I wouldn't want to make the financial commitment. But at 6 issues, I can kind of do the $4 a piece, so that works out. And then finally, of course, the last issue of Metal. So one thing to mention coming up is I recently made an order through Discount Comic Book Service. It's kind of like a pull list, but basically you make your orders way in advance and then they ship them to you once everything is printed. So I'm hoping to review that sometime. I think it's supposed to come this week, so hopefully check out my review on that. I'm going to be reviewing the packaging and everything and just the overall process because it is an interesting idea, especially if you don't have a local comic book store that can do a pull list. So watch out for that. I'm also going to be working on my Flash Season 3 and Legends of Tomorrow. I've compiled all the books. I got to read a couple things. But if you've been enjoying my episode by episode reading recommendations, stay tuned for those as well. As always, let me know down in the comments if you've read anything I've shown here, what you thought about it, if you've gotten any awesome pickups recently, have you completed any series, have you gotten an amazing deal, I want to know about it. Let me know down in the comments, and of course, give me a thumbs up. And until next time, go read a comic. Any comic.